Welcome to another edition of How I Fucked Up, the podcast where we talk to marketing leaders about mistakes they've made, lessons they've learned, and all sorts of good stuff in between. My friend Isaac Pagan is here. He's a wonderful man. We were creative partners for a very short time at Ogilvy. I miss him every day, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell the audience where you are right now.
That is true. We are friends. We were partners for a short but very memorable stint at Ogilvy a long time ago. And we have stayed friends ever since. And no one can take that from us. I, I am currently the executive creative director at Turtle Beach, which is a San Diego-based game peripherals company. We make mice, keyboards, headsets, and other accoutrements that go with gaming and PC, PlayStation, Xbox, cross-platform, all the things. I've been there for just about 4 months now. I was previously at Pepsi, leading creative for the internal agency called D3, and before that, I was at Ogilvy, heading up some accounts.
Awesome. Well, excited to hear about what you've been up to. I think, I'd really like to just start by digging into, it's always interesting to talk to people that have been on agency side, client side, especially creatives, because that's my pedigree and I feel like I can relate. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you decided or how your journey went from getting from Ogilvy to Pepsi, Pepsi to Turtle Beach. What's it been like going to the dark side, as it were?
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting journey, and it's been different in some ways and very, very much the same in others. I will say, just kind of going back a little further, before I was ECD at Ogilvy, I worked as a creative strategist at Facebook, and that was my first foray into non-agency side and client side, so to speak, in the sense that I was working for the company that would typically hire the agency. And that was the first and only time that I kind of stepped away from capital C creative and worked on a non-creative, more strategic role, supporting sales through creativity. And that was the one time that I was kind of like outside of my comfort zone, truly outside of the creative realm, doing more like what I would call is like creative consulting. And for all the value that experience gave me and all the learnings that I got, I learned that I wanted to be a creative. Like I wanted to be at the kind of leading edge of making things and building things and having ideas and having creative conversations. So that's why I came back, so to speak, to the agency side. Then the question being like, how did I move to Pepsi? Honestly, it was kind of circumstance led me there. I wasn't like planning on moving brand side. The opportunity happened, and I think it was because of what I happened to have in my book, which was a lot of packaged goods, a lot of food and bev. At the time at Ogilvy, I was running the Jimmy Dean account and the Tyson account as a whole, which is a lot of different food brands. And then at the same time, I was running beer and vodka, Absolute and Victoria. And even though Pepsi doesn't do alcohol, I had that experience of both food and bev, kind of 50-50 at, big companies, big brands. And I think that made me a good candidate for that role. And I think that's kind of what allowed me to parlay one into the other. At Pepsi, honestly, the experience was very much like an agency experience, because in a very real sense, the department that I was part of was the internal agency for the Pepsi food brands. And we operated very much like an agency culture, agency conversations, the same kind of extended experience that you would have at any shop. I had there, with the benefit or the added layer, I guess, of having close proximity with your brand partners, with your clients, which they were truly our clients still, even though we shared an email. But you sat next to them, you saw them at the kitchenette, You grabbed lunch with them, you had casual conversations with them. That made it easier to ingrain and to talk ideas and to progress the ideas and to sell the ideas because you had that kind of colleague like relationship. Even though you were still agency client, you were also colleagues at the same time, and that allowed for just more candid conversations. And I always say, like, there wasn't a bag of money on the table at every meeting. It was more like we work together and we're gonna get there together. I really love that because it was kind of a shortcut into great work where you didn't have to do um, so much legwork. Honestly, like I think like once you have enough experience as a creative, you arrive at the ideas quickly and you kind of know instinctively where you want to go and where you want to take things. And what my experience at Pepsi revealed to me was that you could get from that idea to selling and execution a lot more quickly than perhaps I was used to before. And I think it's just a factor of the way that you know, agencies and clients work. There's complexities that sometimes just need to be there,
Yep.
but that they cause delays and they cause friction in the process.
I want to talk a little bit about that. It's you know, our friend Tito, I had him on to chat about his experience at Whirlpool, and I heard the same thing. And he's like, I sit next door to the CFO, and now we can have all these kind of conversations. It's like when you're at an agency back when we were younger creatives, you're never thinking about, oh, I would like to have a conversation with our CFO or the client CFO. Like there's no, you know, or even the client necessarily at that level. And it is such a, you know, and to hear you talk about it, it's very obvious. But you know, you don't think about the not the waste, but just the time that goes into agency intaking information, coming back, interpreting it, going back. You have to schedule a meeting. You can't go next door to somebody's office, and it just, the world is
Yeah,
so much faster than that now that it, you know, the reason we exist as a small agency largely is we can get there faster, to your
yeah.
point, if you've got the talented creatives, excluding myself of
And
course, but
and what
the
gets
other
lost in
creatives,
translation
uh
too. Like
yeah,
it's so easy. I see it. I mean, obviously, I'm still very much engaged and involved in the creative the way I was at the agency side, but like I'll talk about a little bit about our model right now where I'm at Turtle Beach. We have an internal creative team, and we manage a lot of things, the packaging, product, a lot of really critical things. Then we also have external agency partners. We have Gut New York, and the way that we've approached them is because there's a lot of us internally at Turtle Beach that share an agency background. We are cognizant of those barriers that the typical client agency relationship has, and we've worked really hard and diligently to like, let's just remove the barrier. I have a direct line to my counterpart at Gut, the head creative on the account there, and we are empowered. I am empowered to just go and have creative conversations directly, make creative decisions directly. You know, we'll reconcile things if we need to after, but we're kind of trying to build it so that the speed is in of itself, like the way that we work is fast and agile. We're not waiting. Sometimes we have to set up a meeting. Sometimes you need all the stakeholders together. But oftentimes, once the big pieces are decided on, you can just go. You can just kind of go and iterate, and we're trying to figure out a way that we can work more like truly. I know this word gets thrown a lot, but truly like partners. Like we're stakeholders together, even though they are their own entity, their own agency. We're really trying to make it super integrated and make it feel like we sit next to each other because that is the best way to work, honestly. Not have to wait for the big meeting in 2 weeks that might or might not answer the question that the client has in their minds, and something might have gotten lost in translation, and maybe you waited too long to bake the creative and it's not what is going to hit the target. So anyway, it's all kind of trying to bring the best of both worlds in a way that makes sense and in a way that still makes it fun to to do what we do for a living, because it's honestly like at the end of the day it's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. You're supposed to have like energy about every day, and kind of, you know, end the day having made something that didn't exist that morning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, literally that morning to end of day, right? Or end of week is now the more normal thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that the way you're talking about working is that's the way we like to work too with our client partners. And I think that as we continue to find that teams are smaller, both on the internal marketing departments of our clients and ourselves, you have to work that way, because then it's just you strip it all away, you strip all the burn away, and you get right to it. And it's refreshing, because then everyone's also more bought in at the beginning too, and
Totally.
there's no ta-da, there's no we're going to go away for a month and come back with ideas and they were all strategically wrong, but we didn't have any touch points along the way,
Yeah.
which you see a lot of the time with big agencies, even still, I'm guessing, despite the fact that all the big agencies have gone through such,
Yeah.
consolidation and rebranding and chaos and all that. So it's really exciting to hear about how you're working over there.
Yeah. Trying to learn, trying to, and trying to be like, you know, trying to be the client that when we were agency side, we would have really wanted to work with. Like honestly trying to be the dream client and in some ways. But also, you know, being on the inside, so to speak, also is revealing, because it I have like a retroactive sense of empathy for some of my older clients, where I'm like, oh, I really, I mean, I am a stakeholder in the company. I have responsibilities for performance, as you know, as it should be. And I feel the weight of my creative decisions having to reconcile with like performance decisions, and trying to do right by both, because it's like my role is to be the driver of creative. I have to be brave, um and push in that direction, but also having those two sides of my brain working at the same time. Like it's not an easy thing to reconcile. If you're surrounded by the right team and the right people, it becomes easier. But it's still like you have to manage the left and right side of the brain, and do right by both constantly.
Well, and I also think as a creative minded person, it's even harder, right? Because you're just like, well, the idea wins. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go with my heart, but it just, or my gut, as it were,
Yeah,
pardon the pun. But yeah, it gets a lot tougher. You have to be more responsible in a
it
lot of ways.
is. Yeah, I have to be the grown up in the room. I'm not used to it, but sometimes I have to be.
Okay, so we talk about mistakes and fuck ups, and I'll give you a choice here, because I know you're fairly new at Turtle Beach. So either I'd love to hear about mistakes at Pepsi, or are there things that, coming from the agency side, coming from that mindset, that you've twisted yourself up so far that you've messed up in how you've gone about something, because I think it's great to have empathy, but I also think that there's a certain shell that you attain, that there's just baggage that you won't get anywhere else than at an agency. So just either one of those or both, I'd just love to
Yeah, I
hear a
mean,
little bit about it.
mistakes aplenty. Let me think about like, because there's like mistakes of like missteps, and then there's like things that I look back on and I go like, huh, that was interesting that I made that decision and not this decision, and now I would have made this decision. I think, well, I'm gonna say the pragmatic part first is, um I think everything does happen for a reason, and I think things kind of there's a like an order, an entropy. There's an order to things that they're kind of supposed to fall in a certain order, and so for you to have basically like progress to the next level. And if you're paying attention, you're learning as you're going, and you're kind of putting the pieces together somewhat in the correct order. I would say I I think I underestimated the and this is maybe like more generalized, like as a leader, I underestimated the exponential power of a team. And I've always been like hands-on maker. I consider myself like, I'm not saying I'm any good, but I consider myself a craftsperson and paying attention, minding the details always. And I think the more that I've grown and the longer I've been an ECD for, the more I've let go of control and truly learned to trust the team and let go of like a specific outcome that I have in mind and allow it to be a positive, great outcome that I might not be the full owner of. And I think if I go back like even 3 or 4 years, not that long ago, I feel myself being much more um, attached and desiring more control than I do now. And now I'm grateful to be able to reflect on this way, but now I feel myself a lot more relaxed in life, but also a lot more um, uh, allowing myself to be less in control, a lot more comfortable with letting the team do the thing, letting the work take its course, coming back and being surprised by what they've delivered, as opposed to coming back and being dismayed that it's not exactly what I had in my mind. Like just kind of a mental shift that has taken a couple of years to happen. And I do think that it's the right way to operate because you're giving agency to your team. They're creatives. They're there for a reason. I'm there to help set the stage and kind of lead them in the right direction generally, and very often specific, very seldom specifically, but more often as generally setting the course and making sure that they don't lose, right? So I think just in a big sense in my career, I think it's gone from very tight control to a more relaxed, confident sense of I know where we need to go. Here, you take me there, me to my team. And I think that's probably been the biggest shift and the biggest mistake that I made early as a higher level leader,
Being
agency
able
side
to
and
let
brand side
go.
too. Yeah,
Yeah. Was there a specific assignment that was able to help you shift, or was it more cumulative where you did it a few times and you're just like, you know what, I gotta take a step back, because I'll say that.
yeah.
Go ahead, and then I'll
No, I
have
was just gonna
a
say I
story
don't
about
think I
this
had a
too.
choice. I
Yeah,
don't think I had a choice. I think it was truly because at a certain point in my career, there was so much work, and so much stuff happening that how else would you do it? I mean, the reason, and you realize like the reason I have a team is because it's about exponential impact and it's about scaling yourself. It's not about duplicating yourself and everyone is a copy of you. It's about scaling the right elements and the right messaging and the right pieces and then letting them do it. And I think that's what being prolific as a leader, as a creative leader means now. It's less I am the author of this and this is I had a hand in leading the teams that did it to to the right place and setting that course very clearly so that they could get us there. And obviously, there's varying degrees of uh, massaging and impact that you're going to have throughout that process, but by and large it is more hands off than I was 4 years ago.
yeah, and necessity. Nothing will get you like, well, I either have to or I have to work 20 hours a day. And I've experienced that too. And the word prolific is a really interesting one to use as a leader, because I think, as for all good creatives, the creatives that were brought up like you and me, we started by being prolific with ideas because we're like, I don't know what's good, so I'm just gonna do a
Yeah,
shitload, and hopefully there'll be something good in there. And prolific as a leader is really interesting because that means you're just affecting a lot of things on any given day, and it might be an assignment, or it might be the org chart, or it might be financial planning or whatever. And I think that's a really good and interesting philosophy as a creative leader, to think in that way, because, but it's an ego thing as a creative, right? Because as a craftsperson, how do you can't let go of the craft, but you can find other trusted craftspeople who you may have to say one thing to, but you don't have to craft it for them,
totally.
right?
I do think it's like a philosophical shift. And what does authorship really mean at the
Yeah.
various stages? Like the younger you are, the more I think like, tighter you hold on to the term authorship. It's my idea. It was my idea that won. And even like even between partners, it was like, was it your idea? Was it my idea? Like I remember having those conversations when I was, 22, 23, and being like, but I thought of it. And then you helped, like that kind of thing. And then you realize the silliness in that, and how many opportunities there are out there. And then the more you grow, the responsibility that you have to nurture so many opportunities, and it just becomes like it's a no-brainer. You either let go, or you cannot grow. You don't belong in that position of because you just are not going to do it well.
Yep. And we all know creatives and that's totally fine. Like if you just want to be a senior AD or an ACD,
Yeah.
but just make the work,
And that's
great.
great.
And
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than trying to be miscast, and I've seen it a million times. I'm sure you have too.
100%.
Where it's like this person either doesn't know how to give direction, or they don't know how to lead, or they don't care to,
Yeah.
and or some
A hundred
combination.
percent. There's also something about you mentioned like the org chart. There is something about, and this has probably happened to me in the Pepsi. Pepsi was a great education in that because Pepsi is it's a Fortune 50 company. It's one of the biggest companies in the world for a reason. They have rigor and standards that align with that caliber company, and that those things don't exist on the creative side because they don't necessarily sometimes they don't need to, but it's not to say that they wouldn't be good if they did. But agencies and creative enterprises are kind of defined by creativity, and a company like a Fortune 50 company is defined by by data and metrics, and it's very different. And I learned to appreciate and honestly like even enjoy the organizational and more heavily like business strategic part of the creative side, right? Like you learn to understand it. It's like planning for a flight. Like I like flying the plane, but in order to fly a plane safely, I have to plan it. And planning it might not be the most fun thing, but you can find joy in it. You can find joy in like I was having a conversation today about um like organizational matters, and it's cool because you are affecting creativity. You're looking at it from the lens of how can I get this team to do the best possible work? How can I supercharge so and so for them to see the runway that they have at this company, or for them to see the runway that they have in their career via the org chart, via how we position them within the company. And that's a creative conversation. I wouldn't like a couple of years ago, I would not have considered that a creative conversation, but it is a creative conversation if you're looking at it from that lens, and you're kind of leaning in and saying, like I have this conversation with myself all the time. This is an important conversation. This might not, they're not showing me work. They're not showing me ideas. This is not a program that's going to be seen by millions of people, but this is an important conversation because it's going to have a huge impact on creativity. And I think that's another, like, you turn 40 and you start thinking about these things differently. And I do think that there's an element to, not to say that younger people can't be tremendous leaders. I've seen it, but there is an element to I don't know, like literal maturity of age, of time spent in the business, where your brain does change into, there's like another little door that opens in your brain, and you start thinking like dad thoughts, which is good. Like it's necessary.
That's my brain is at, my friend. Well, it's interesting. Well, and I wonder too, it's like, does there become a certain, there's the 10,000 hours thing. Does there become, you've spent your 10,000 in first comp hour. And so now it's like, "Oh, it's time, I don't
Yeah,
know. I wrote my 10,000 in first
possible.
deadline,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but, and it really resonates with me about these creativity in conversations where you would never imagine the type of conversation, because we have those all the time as well, whether it's seating chart or I do a lot more biz dev stuff now, and we redid our capabilities over the last year, and it's all of that stuff is all
You,
opportunity,
I find that
and I
exciting,
left with
honestly.
it,
Now,
and
like year 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, get me out of this meeting. I
Right.
got to get back to the work. It's
Right.
all about the
Right.
work. And
Right.
now I'm like, no, I want to affect stuff like this because I recognize, you make a small tweak here and it's a big impact in a couple of months, and you've gone through it. You know it because you've seen it. You've done it already. Um, I don't know if I answered the question, like the mistakes I made. I think it was more like a slow shift over time. But I do think like the last 4 or 5 years have taught me that is just to relinquish control, trust the team, and learn to like and maybe even love some of the less creative parts of the creative job because they're super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, as the business continues to evolve, there's going to be fewer places for creatives that are just like, I'm going to do the work. And I don't know. If you're talented enough, I'm sure there'll always be work
Yeah,
for you, but you may not necessarily be able to grow in an organization like you were able to back when we started, where it was like, oh, well, there's always more CDs. There's always more this because there's so many accounts to lead. But now you have to do so many different things. You have to pivot and wear
yeah,
these different financial hat and creative hat and
totally.
HR hat. And it's all, but if you find joy in it, then you're still going to thrive in this business, I think, whether you're at the agency side or the client side.
I think, and then I would add another, and this is not, I think my experience that has taught me to adapt. And I think the credit I'll give myself is that I haven't resisted that evolution. I've been like, okay, then like let's go, let's learn this new thing. And I think generally just in life, it's a good habit to have. The way that I think about it though is you never, like we were talking about this earlier this week, you never really, you kind of don't want to, but you never really stop being the junior art director or copywriter. You kind of add, you are a junior, and then you become a really great junior, and then you add mid-level to that junior, but you're still the junior and now you're a mid-level too, and then you add the senior and you're still the junior and the mid-level and now you're the senior too, but you're doing all of that. So it's almost like you're adding pieces. You're not really leaving anything behind, you're just adding pieces to it. And then when you get to senior leadership, we were talking like I have no issue whatsoever going back and opening Photoshop and building a banner. I have no issue with that. And I will pay attention to every pixel and I will deliver it because it needs to get done just like anything else does. And I have that experience and I like it. It's like right now, I'll support the team in whatever way I need to, agency or internal. And I like being able to, because I know how to do the thing that's like granular and specific and technical, but I can also go up here and that makes my day more interesting and um, more exciting. Like I don't know what this day might hold. I might be building an investor deck as I was, and then giving feedback on a massive program that I have a lot of confidence in that might be the biggest thing we do this year, and go between those two things with humility. But it's also like it is exciting. Like that's like, oh shit, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. I get to touch all these different things. Sometimes it can be exhausting, but I like to think about it as like you're adding pieces to you're like uh the Megatron of creativity. You're just adding
Cool.
you're
Voltron,
adding different pieces.
Voltron, right?
Voltron. That's it. Yeah.
Form the Black
Um,
Lion. I had all
but
the Voltrons. I could form it.
there you
Um,
go. But it is like better. I think it's more healthy to think about it that way.
yeah, and I think, well, and it sounds like your day and my day are very similar, even though we're at different companies and completely different, completely different staffs and responsibilities, but same in a lot of ways. Like, and that's what I tell people whenever we're recruiting, as I say, you know what, and no matter what job, we've been interviewing integrated producers this week, and I said, your day will never be boring, and your day will never be the same twice at our agency because we just the way we're set up, you can stretch if you want to, you can do X if you want to, you can do Y if you want to, or you
Yeah.
can stay in your role and that's okay. But the
Yeah.
people that really excel are the people that are just like, okay, I've
What
done this,
else?
I'm gonna
What
add this,
else?
and I'm gonna add
Yeah,
this, and I'm gonna add this, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, how did I end up in this meeting? I don't know, but I really like it, and
yeah.
it's affecting things. And that's
And
the
there's
thing. It's
always
like,
something new to learn too. Like there's always some crevasse of like marketing that you're like, how does that work? Like right
yeah,
now, because of the industry I'm in, I'm learning about manufacturing a lot, and I'm learning about the processes, and it's a whole niche. But I'm like, it's not necessarily, it's not creative first, but creativity will have an impact in it. And it's just, I'm curious. I want to know like what plastics they use and where it comes from, and how do they achieve this finish, and how they need to combine certain things to have a particular outcome. Like all those things, it's cool. I get to learn about it. I get
yeah.
to maybe become an expert in it. Maybe that's the thing that I pivot to. I don't know. Like that. There's just like there's possibilities and all those little crevasses that are worth um kind of studying or learning a little bit more about.
So that's part of, if you're a creative person at your core, obviously making the thing is the thing, but like that relentless curiosity of like, what I'm learning about plastics today, or it's like we have a farm credit. I'm learning about clients that, or I'm learning about people that want to go buy tractors and get in their mindset, or own a bunch of acreage or whatever. And it's just fascinating. Human
It's
behavior. I mean, there's so much of it is sociology and psychology, and
it
love
really
that
is.
about
I mean, it's interesting. Like advertising is in a roundabout way. I mean, there are other ways certainly, but it is an interesting way to understand the world. Like to learn, like you're learning the world through all these different industries that we get to work in. And you're understanding the world, like, you're driving around. I'm like, everything was designed and built by someone. How did they build that house? How did they build that light pole? How did they build that like everything has like a niche. And we are in a business where we get to um I don't know, we get to uncover that and learn about that just as part of the job if we want it.
Nice. Must be
It
nice. It
is.
is.
Must be nice to
Let me
quote
ask you. So let me ask you
to
this:
quote Tito.
you've been on both sides of the client agency world. Tell me about some things that agency partners have fucked up. Things that ways that you've worked with agencies that have made mistakes with you on the other side of the table. What do they do wrong?
And I'll say this with the caveat that any mistake that I've seen an agency make, I've made myself as an agency person. Um, and it's you understand why they made the mistake because you understand like you've been there, you've done it. I think, and this cuts both ways. It sometimes it's the fault of the agency as much as it is the fault of the client partner. But I think the one thing that I would say is just it's being selfish, is being creatively selfish, where you are so entrenched. There's a difference between conviction and becoming entrenched in something. When you become entrenched in something, you are stubborn for no reason. You're stubborn because you want to win. You're not stubborn because of a real, true belief that what you're doing is the right thing. And I think it takes maturity and it takes experience to be able to like define, like tell those two apart. And I've seen, and I've done it too, agencies become entrenched when they really don't need to, and it's just not going to be. It's not a good outcome. If we say yes, it's not a good outcome, and it's for them and for us. And if they entrench further, it's also like further into an impasse. It's also not a good outcome. Like no one wins. And I've seen that a couple of times, not always, but I think that's a pretty typical behavior. I won't say like every agency does that, but I think every agency has at some point, and every creative has at some point. I've done it. I've been the entrenched, the one that digs their heels in and won't budge until someone needs to tell me, yeah, you got to budge. Um, that's the one thing where I can see it coming, and I know the kind of conversation, and I know how to have the conversation. Um, but the antidote to that is again, constantly checking in, understanding what the other one needs. And then to my point about relinquishing control, me from the position that I'm in now is knowing that it's not my idea, it's our idea. and it's not my vision, it's our vision. And just having that capacity, and for the agencies to have that as well, like you have to have that mutual kind of understanding of someone's going to have to drive. And in some cases the like we'll swap, like I'll drive and they'll be the passenger. In some cases they'll drive and I'll be a passenger, but just understanding that that's just the dynamic, and having the humility to be like, okay, let's go in that direction, because it feels like it's the right direction to go. And not it's avoiding that instinct of becoming entrenched. It's not having conviction, it's becoming entrenched without any real kind of
Because it's
data
cool.
or reason. Yeah. Yeah, because it's cool. Yeah.
Well, and I wonder if so much of that, and we've all done it, like you said. I wonder if so much of that, I think about my career back in the day, is based on like you really don't know what the other person needs. You don't have any idea what their day is like as a marketing manager or a CMO, and you're so far removed from the business side of it that you only see these people maybe once a week, maybe once every couple of weeks.
Less than
You have
that.
no
Maybe
context for their
never.
day at
Yeah.
all, maybe never.
Yeah.
And you see how that happens, and then you see how you can uncouple that with uh, a different. Well, for us, it's a different process because a lot of the time we move really fast, and we'd rather go wide and shallow early and just have a conversation and talk to you about
Yeah.
words,
Just
like
uncover every,
we're
yeah,
heading the right
totally.
way, versus
Yeah.
before we can dig our heels in too far. And then there's part of that is there's something to admire, obviously, about having the creative standards and the conviction, but it has to come from a place of logic at a certain point, and you still have to know when to say, okay, yeah,
Totally. I
I,
think
I'll
that's
I
the
will
thing.
change that. I'll change that
Yeah.
headline. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. It's like, yeah, it's pragmatism to a degree. But I do think that this is the other side of the coin. I, I have conviction in my thinking, for better or worse. I'm not saying it's great, but um, I do really appreciate, and now being on this side of the equation, when agencies come with conviction. And there's a line between, there's humility and conviction. Conviction isn't this is what you're doing. Conviction is this is what I really believe we should do. And conviction comes with accountability, like self accountability. Like I will own the outcome with you, and we will win or lose together. And I really want that, and I see that in our partners. And when I'm going into a big decision, where there are consequences, financial consequences to whatever we pick. I want that conviction. I want to know that they believe in it, as much as I believe in it, or as much as I should believe in it. I think I mean, it's salesmanship, right? Like confidence. But um, yeah, I think it is like that's where the real creative kind of value comes in, when I see a team like really believe in something, and there's passion and their belly about it. That gets me excited.
Versus an agency that presents and then says, and then you say, so what's your recommendation? And they kind of go,
Whatever you like.
which
Yeah.
is, it happens all the time, because I think a lot of the time agencies are working so hard to get to that meeting. They may not necessarily have even aligned on what's their favorite, or they may not even had a chance to think about it. But it's like, well, I mean, what I'm hearing from you is you'd rather have an agency come in with just one idea that they have a lot of conviction about than
If it's that
four.
good, yeah, we might send them back to
Mm.
the drawing board, but maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the right
Well,
idea.
depending on how
Um,
how how good of a relationship they have with you, they might know the business so well that they can do that, right?
and that's the beauty of it too. Like if you can establish a really, really good agency client relationship, and sustain it for long enough, you will get to a point where it's second nature, and they know what you need, uh, almost more than you know what you need. And you get to that point where it narrows, and it's just like it becomes a hit, 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 as opposed to so much trial and error. It depends on the client, very much depends on the client as well, to like be providing them with the right ammo to do that, and the right amount of trust and flexibility to do that. but that's the best case scenario. That's where you're truly, and I do believe in agency ecosystems. Um, I saw it work extremely well at Pepsi, and I'm seeing it work here really well as well. So, um, yeah, the last thing I'll say about this particular thing is smaller teams that are really empowered and accountable. Also, I've seen it throughout my career. Basically, everything that I've done that I'm really proud of. It hasn't been this gigantic team of people. Even the big things that we've done that I've done in my career, big budget or whatever, um, has been done by 10 people, sometimes less. Core people. I mean, there's more people when you hire a crew and you make a production, but the people that are actually the owners and the drivers, it's a small crew. It's not that many people, and I think that's the right way to you give accountability to a few people, the right people, and it's gonna turn out.
That's a really interesting and great point. Considering that you've worked at the Ogilvies, the Metas, the Pepsis, those are
It's
not
always been
small
small teams
organizations.
though. Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I've worked at, big companies, but it's always been like I've always been part of a big team.
Hmm.
But the task force that drives the work forward is it's always a tight group, small
Totally.
tight group.
Yeah, and it's like at those bigger places, you find it's almost like it can be an agency within an agency, like at Ogilvy when we were Kimberly Clark. It was
Totally.
kind of like, okay, we've got like our core 5 or 6 of us or whatever, and it's the same type of thing. But yeah, keep it small and be
And
accountable, get it done, right?
it's yeah, you don't want to let down the person that you're going to have to see, every single day for, you know, 9 to 12 hours a day. You don't want to
Right,
let them down. So
right.
you do your job well.
I love it. Well, let me ask you one more question. I'm going to come full circle of, talking about your pride as a craftsman. What do you think about like what's the state of craft in marketing and advertising right now? Talk a little bit about that.
Honestly, like it's easy, I think, to fall into the back in the day, back in my, yeah, I've been working
Sure.
for almost 20 years now. Um, and I actually feel even with the advent, maybe because of it, but even with the advent of AI, which by the way, we can talk about that, but I'm not allergic to. I just think it has to be, used in a certain way. But even with that, I actually I'm excited and I would say I'm happy with the state of craft because of certain like highlights that I've seen in the the recent past and work that I'm like incredible writing is alive and well. Incredible art direction is alive and well. It we there's ebbs and flows, and there's big agencies that become small agencies, and the hot shot agencies that go away. Like there's always that ebb and flow, but there's always the new ones that rise. And out of all this turmoil of the last year, 2 years, there's this, I think, renewed kind of passion for creativity because people, in the time of crisis, they go back to, wait, why am I doing this? What am I doing and why am I doing it? And the people that either stay at whatever places they're at, or they start their own thing, or they go branch out on their own. I think they've kind of found their creative selves again, and they're about it. Like they're leaning into no, creativity does work. No, creativity is important. No, what we do does matter. And I'll just like bring up the name of an agency that I really admire lately. It's Isle of Any,
I was just
and
going to mention them. Yeah.
I mean, like they I
A
think more
perfect
than
case
any like
study.
gut rethink mischief. There's so many agencies that are like beacons of like creativity with a capital C, of like that energy is felt, but they are bringing craft in the most beautiful, most amazing way that I've seen in the last, I think, honestly, maybe in my whole career, but definitely in the last 15 years. And they surprised me. Uncommon Studio is another one, but the Isle of Annie's work surprises me consistently. The work that those creatives did for New York Times, and they were at their previous agency. I think it was Droga. I loved it so much, and I would rewatch an ad. I don't watch advertising, even though I make it for a living. I just don't watch it. But I would rewatch it because it was not advertising. It was like poetry and film. It was so beautiful, but it had a message. Then the work that they just did for, I mean, they've continued doing great work for the New York Times, but the work that they just did for my God, is it Coinbase?
Base, yeah, yeah. Oh,
I
it's
mean,
phenomenal.
it's just like it really is like wow.
Yeah,
That those words rarely kind of
and that
come
was
out
all
of a
practical
creative's
too,
mouth,
right?
but
Or most of it was
all
practical.
practical,
That's
or
incredible.
enough of it was done practically. And basically, they're saying in this world of AI, you learn to use it and leverage it in the right way, but there is no replacing creativity and craft can be applied in AI too, 100%.
100%.
But anyway, I think there's like I'm hopeful and I'm excited, and I if I was starting my career over again, I know where I would want to start working. Like the same age, like for me, it was it was Crispin, and that was my first job. Like I always had like I want to work at Crispin, I want to work, and that's where I if I was 22, 23 now, I have my list of 5 agencies that's where I would want to go. I think that's a good way to think about it. If I was young now, are there places where I would kill to work at? And yes, definitely there's
That's
plenty.
a good litmus test of if the ad agency world is how they're doing, right? And yeah, I love any, and that specific spot was exactly what was on my mind.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we just went to the Seattle Addies last week, and we saw some student work that was awesome, and we're lucky enough that the guy that just cleaned up there he's gonna be joining us as a motion
Oh,
guy, and
that's
he's
amazing.
he's gonna do all
But
kinds of
see, like,
crazy stuff.
and even working with the agency, like the younger team, and they're seasoned, but the younger team, like they have that passion in their belly. Like you just kind of wonder, like, where are all the like juniors and mid levels? But no, they're out there and they're hungry, they're passionate, they're making great work. Yeah, no, I feel hopeful. I don't think it's in disrepair. I think it's always kind of a challenging industry, and it has to pivot and change. And some of the change is not great, but by and large, I think like creativity is doing well, and craft is doing well.
Love it.
I think.
Well, I really appreciate you spending the time with me, Isaac. It's always a pleasure, and thanks for
Thank you.
wearing your matching Ebbets Field flannels gear.
There's a
Maybe
little
they'll
PR
sponsor us.
representing.
I love it. But yeah, man, it's always good to talk to you, and this is a great
Likewise, dude.
conversation. So
Thank you for the
uh,
invite.
yeah, thanks for being a part of it, and we will see you next time on How I Fucked Up.
Yes, sir.